There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually alive, radically inclusive, and justice-centered community. We are so glad that you are here. If you are new, please say hello in the chat or in the comments. Also, please know that everyone is invited to the coffee hours on Zoom following the 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. service. The coffee hour starts at 10 a.m. or at noon. You'll find the link at www.muuf.org/virtual. We have a few announcements to share with you. Today is the last day to bid on the Spring Fling service auction offerings. Enjoy fun events in summer and early fall, as well as other goodies. I see Swedish cardamom pastries, hikes, a salmon dinner, a taco party, and more. Go to www.togetherauction.com/MUUF. Mark your calendars for June 6th at 12:30 for our annual meeting on Zoom. And on June 13th for an ice cream social, games, and a high school bridging ritual in person at Lewis Morris Park from 1 to 3 p.m. You will not want to miss it. We are coming to the end of our annual support drive, Weaving the Strands of Community, and we invite you to be a part of making this community happen through monthly, quarterly, or annual financial contributions. We ask that you share your pledge with us this week if you haven't already. Our Board of Trustees bases the budget that we pass on that June 6th annual meeting on pledges to date. Our stretch goal is $505,000 in order to achieve a fully funded budget. We are 3/4 of the way there. Let's keep it up. Please mail back the pledge card you received in the mail or go online to give. www.muuf.org/annual-pledge. Today's offering will be split between our fellowship and the Morris area chapter of New Jersey Together. Help us to organize with our interfaith neighbors around the pressing issues of our community. thank you for your generosity. It makes a big difference. Let us open our worship by affirming, it is good to be. It is good to be here. It is so good to be here together. Welcome Nina and Ken Nemeth, who will share the light of their chalice from home with all of us in our virtual sanctuary.
The Task of Religious Community by Morrison-Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bond that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship, discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice.
It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens our strength, and our strength is renewed.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to bridges, you reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to bridges, you reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, with all of our voices and all of our visions, with friends we could make such sweet harmonies. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
I invite you to join me. Let us unite our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, we live in a world filled with strife. Israel and Palestine are among the latest peoples to be at war once more. Grandchildren take up the cause of their parents and grandparents. Children taste the fear of bombs and the anger from being misunderstood. Violence begets violence, and one generation passes down the conflict to another. Peace begets peace, and people learn how to coexist here in this moment, 2 days into a tenuous peace. May we be among those who build bridges and co-create peace. Not a peace that is simply the absence of violence. May we actively seek to understand and to be understood. May we be among those who refuse to deny the humanity of our foes and who refuse to let them deny our own. After all, Israelis and Palestinians have proven time and again to be genetic siblings on the family tree. And in the end, don't we all come from a common ancestor? May we grow in spiritual maturity enough to stop putting hatred in the mouths of our children. May they taste love and not fear, compassion and not anger. Help us to be builders of peace that is lasting, that asks us to change for the better before it is too late. Peace. Peace at home. Peace. Peace abroad. Peace. Peace among all the peoples of the earth. Peace. Shalom. Salam. Peace. Our story for all ages is Perfect Square, written and illustrated by Michael Hall. It was a perfect square. It had 4 matching corners and 4 equal sides, and it was perfectly happy. But on Monday, the square was cut into pieces and poked full of holes, and it wasn't perfectly square anymore. So it made itself into a fountain that babbled and giggled and clapped. On Tuesday, the square was torn into scraps, so it made itself into a garden. On Wednesday, the square was shredded in strips, so it made itself into a park. On Thursday, the square was shattered, so it made itself into a bridge. On Friday, the square was snipped into ribbons, so it made itself into a river. On Saturday, the square was crumpled and ripped and wrinkled, so it made itself into a mountain. On Sunday, the square waited to see what was next. It waited and waited. Nothing happened. Its 4 equal sides were confining. Its 4 matching corners were rigid and cramped. So it made itself into a window that looked out on a mountain, that gave birth to a river, that was crossed by a bridge, that led to a park, that was home to a garden, that had at its center a fountain, that babbled and giggled and clapped.
This old world may be sleeping, but we have been dreaming of a brighter day. Some of us keeping our minds on the reason. Beautiful season is coming our way. Today could be the day. Hey, little flower, you got the power to push through green blankets. You're ready to grow. Hey there, sweet bluebird, tell me what you heard. I want to sing that great song that you know. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day is coming, yes, there will be sunshine. Wipe away teardrops, springtime will come. It's been so lonely, but that was only our chance to realize the love that we need. Come take my hand now, let's make a plan how to stay wide awake. Let's fly you and me away. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day has come, tell me you feel the sun. Wipe away teardrops, springtime has come. I'm wide awake now.
When faced with a time of great upheaval and change, mounting losses and grief, a disciple asked his teacher, "How can we find happiness in a world where nothing is permanent and everything and everyone we love could be gone at any moment?" The teacher said, "You see this glass? For me, it is already broken. I enjoy it, this vessel which carries water to my lips and quenches my thirst. If I tap it, it makes a lovely ring. When I look at it, sometimes I can see the sun reflected off of it, making beautiful patterns. One day, when it is perched on a table and knocked over by my elbow or someone else's or the wind, it will fall to the ground and shatter. Then I will say, of course, I understand. The glass was already broken." I honor the truth in that Buddhist tale. We are all like glass. Our bodies are finite and fragile from the moment we are born. We are fated to die. Whether from a virus or another illness or simply old age. Acceptance of this can lead to the joy of awareness as to the preciousness of each day and each hour. However, at other times, we are called to collect the shards of broken glass, to gather them up and to strive to make what is broken whole again. This feels especially vital to assert this week as we approach May 25th, the anniversary of George Floyd's death through cruel and callous punishment on the streets of Minneapolis. George cried out a final lament, "I can't breathe," and he cried out for his mama with his last breath. George was taken from his mother and children too soon, which can never be undone. But his last words, they are a call to all of us, siblings and cousins in the human family, to resistance and to repair. We are called to mend the brokenness and address and redress the havoc that racism and white supremacy wreak in our communities, on Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color in particular, as well as trans people, people with disabilities, and people with intersecting marginalized identities. We are called to ask, whose elbow or knee is it that is repeatedly breaking what was whole, even if impermanent, holy, even if imperfect, and also someone's beloved? In the Jewish mystical tradition of Kabbalah, there is a guiding story we might turn to for inspiration. In the beginning, there was only a wholeness we name God. Then God breathed in and withdrew to make room for something else. The first thing that was created was light, a brilliant primordial light. God filled vessels with the holy light and sent them to the world. However, that light was so powerful that the vessels shattered. A different Big Bang, sending shards and sparks across the universe and across our world. Some of the divine light became trapped in the shards. According to this story, humans were created with the purpose of finding the shards, collecting what is broken, and piecing back together the divine sparks within us, among us, and all around us, and in everything. This concept is called Tikkun Olam in Hebrew, often translated as repairing the world. But the Hebrew word tikkun also has the meaning of improve. The work is not simply to put things back the way they were. That was a context that led to brokenness. It is about the imagination and the courage to create something new, something more resilient that better reflects and frees the divine light. As in the story for all ages of a square that once seemed perfect and whole, but actually had the seeds and the sparks within for something more beautiful and diverse in color, arrangement, and shape. At first, that poor square went through so much. It was cut, poked, torn, shredded, shattered, snipped, crumpled, and wrinkled. It would be understandable if it just wanted to be a square again, if it was too tired and chose to move towards that familiar shape. But the square didn't. It made use of its broken open form to practice becoming something else and something new. Finally, when it became a square again, it became a window, shining a light onto all the varied possibilities waiting to take shape in the world. Many of us, over a year into the coronavirus pandemic, may be feeling torn apart and tired. We may long to go back to what was normal and familiar. But that was a form, physical, emotional, and spiritual, that was far from perfect. Before we rush to regather as we reach a safe point of immunity from the vaccines, we would be wise to remember the lessons of this time of distance and physical separation. In some ways, we are closer than we were before, emotionally and spiritually. We have been through a collective trauma and worked together on our collective resilience. It is no accident that Black Lives Matter caught on in the mainstream during this time. And it's certainly not a new movement. On one hand, George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor's and Ahmaud Arbery's deaths are appalling. But there have been many appalling cases of brutality before. I think that it is in being broken open by suffering. Many more people of privilege were jolted out of a slumbering sense that everything is okay. It isn't. It wasn't. We will all rise together or perish as fools, as Dr. King said. The further breakdown of the shards of a society built on white supremacy, extreme nationalism, exploitation of the earth, and unfettered capitalism have revealed how fragile and flawed our healthcare, housing, education, economic, and criminal justice systems are, and how few in number are the people they serve. It is broken. Let's fix it, but let's do that in new ways too. In the story I shared earlier from Kabbalah, the most creative of all forces, the most powerful of all forces, God, moves out of the way and doesn't take up all the air to make room for something new. Let that be part of what fixing means and part of a new practice. Let us imagine all of us, especially those of us with privilege, learning how to be made in that image of the divine, reminding us that part of the work of creation is moving to the side and not taking up all the air in order to center the voices, the light, the visions that were once relegated to the side or the outside. So often in our UU communities and in the wider world in which we live, it is people on the margins who have noticed and been impacted by the jagged, broken shards for the longest. A number of them are the activists, the artists, the survivors with tested wisdom as to how to practice new, more resilient, more holistic, more whole ways of being and becoming. Let me share a story on this topic from Morris County, New Jersey, about how in this time of physical distance, we are finding ourselves more together than before in moving the work of repair, reimagination, and co-creating something new. The physical separation of the pandemic meant that our congregation and others like it were cut off from some of the ways we are accustomed to embodying our values of justice, equity, and compassion, our second principle. We could no longer volunteer inside of soup kitchens or advocate inside the State House or mentor in after-school programs or in many places we gather with our neighbors to alleviate suffering. We decided to use the disruption of the pandemic to pay attention to which groups of people were impacted disproportionately. We also practiced new ways of being and organizing. We were already in the process of forming a new multi-faith, nonpartisan coalition called Morris Area Together. In the virtual context, we found that it was easier to meet with neighbors throughout our county of 500,000 people and not just neighbors in Morristown. In fact, we are now beginning to organize statewide under the banner of New Jersey Together. We interviewed thousands of people in our multiracial, multi-faith, economically diverse county and uncovered what were the pressing issues of now. We centered the voices of the Black community and immigrants, including people who are undocumented. 3 needs surfaced. Affordable housing was made even more challenging during this pandemic, and many are facing eviction. Mental health and addiction are on the rise. And one issue that surfaced, which was so clearly an issue prior to the pandemic, was the racial disparities in mass incarceration. We studied what was happening in our county and not just Morristown's police force, and discovered that African Americans were incarcerated at rates of 23.5 times that of white residents in our county. 23.5 times more. By the way, that statistic is the worst in the nation. A broken system that discards precious Black lives and leaves their families to also struggle disproportionately. We discovered the prosecutor's office and uneven charging and sentencing practices were a major factor. We raised awareness through social media campaigns. We wrote and called our representatives. We organized a statewide New Jersey Together Zoom call, which thousands joined. We were interviewed on television and shared the stories of the people in our communities. When the Morris County prosecutor resigned his office the day after a condemning article we wrote for the newspaper, he said, I quote, "I just want to say I didn't resign because of New Jersey Together." That was the best endorsement for our work. And more importantly, we are already meeting with the new prosecutor and holding him accountable to be a part of the change. Black churches, and specifically formerly incarcerated leaders, are major voices at these Zoom tables. Elected and appointed officials are showing up because we are demonstrating an ability to mobilize people and power. But this is a table where the civic voice, the people's voices who are most impacted, are centered. The most recent Zoom table was organized by the Morris area chapter of New Jersey Together earlier this month. It was our public launch and over 700 were in attendance. We held conversations on that call with the mayor of Morristown and his primary opponent about getting back into right and legal relations around affordable housing, with the prosecutor about next steps to reduce racial disparities in criminal justice, and with the CEO of Motive Care, a major transportation company, about solving problems around timely rides to mental health appointments. We were not afraid to turn up the heat and hold these leaders accountable, and we're just getting started. There, at those Zoom tables where we have practiced being together while apart, I have witnessed a spirit of collective liberation on the move. Call it the work of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. Call it the work of building the beloved community or creating a kingdom of heaven on earth. Whatever you call it, it is our shared purpose. May we be the authors and artists, the organizers, the researchers, the teachers, the students, the hosts and guests at a welcome table where when things break, we repair them in ways that release and free the divine sparks in all. May it be so.
So many things we can't control, so many hurts that happen every day, so many heartaches that pierce the soul, so much pain do we make it better? How do we make it through? What can we do when there's nothing we can do? We can be kind. We can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. Nobody really wants to fight. Nobody really wants to go to war. Everyone wants to make things right. So what are we always fighting for? Does nobody want to see it? Does nobody understand? The power to heal is right here in our hand. We can be kind. We can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And it's not enough to talk about it, not enough to sing a song. We must walk the walk about it. You and I, do or die, we've got to try to get along. We can be kind. We can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And maybe we'll find true peace of mind if we always remember we can be kind.
And now, in our going, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us and radiate out from within us. May it be gracious unto us and grow our commitments to liberation. For this is the day and the life that we are given. So let us plant seeds of hope and healing, joy and justice in it.
There